Hi guys, welcome to Blender 3D for Horizon Worlds Creators Part 1, Navigation and Basic Geometry. So the angle of this course is really aimed at, many of us have been building on Horizon Worlds for, some time now, some months, some years, right? And we're very comfortable with the tools in Horizon Worlds. But how do we now branch across to sort of maybe, hey, have a go at a 3D modeling package like Blender, right? Blender's perfect because it's free. It does an awful lot of things. And sure, it's got a very steep learning curve, but it's very much worth sticking with it. You'll get some initial sort of frustrations and grumbles with it, but honestly, power through it. And I'm going to try and show you some tips and techniques in this first session that might help it might help you transition across from the way you build in Horizon Worlds to now starting off in Blender with a view to sort of like creating a bit like you do in Horizon Worlds already. And where you go from that, well, we can obviously do a lot more with 3D authoring packages because we have access to things like, manipulating vertices, which we'll cover a bit later. And these are things which we might not be quite so familiar with in Horizon Worlds, but they're incredibly powerful. So in this session, we'll be covering basic scene navigation. Then we'll be looking at adding meshes in. Then we'll be looking at object mode and edit mode and how they're different and what they're used for. And then we'll just have a quick look at modifiers, because I know in Horizon Worlds we get the array tool. So I want to show you that is also possible in Blender with a lot of enhancements as well. So there's a lot more to this, but I'm hoping this will give you a really good foundation with which you can then sort of continue your building hobby, or let's say career, or whatever you do this for, the love or the money, who knows, right? Okay, so we won't be covering sort of UV mapping or texture or anything too advanced on this first session, okay? But if you like this, please do remember to hit the like button below and also throw me a sub. That kind of feedback is crucial. It lets me know that people are watching it, that they're getting something from it. And if I see that lighting up, I will make more of them, of course. So yeah, please do, if you haven't already, just to hit that button and stay tuned for the rest. So a word on shortcut keys in Blender. So shortcut keys, right, at first it's going to hit you like a bit of a wall because this is going to be unfamiliar territory. And if your memory is anything like mine, you're going to struggle to remember a lot of it. But luckily, in Blender, a lot of the shortcut keys are very intuitive. And whilst there are menu options that do what the shortcut keys do, I would definitely encourage learning the shortcut keys. They will speed you up infinitely. So yeah, do keep an eye on them to help you out. Now at the bottom, oh no, this direction on the side. So down here you see a little mouse, right? And that next to that is, you're gonna have some keys appearing next to that. So as I'm going through these examples where I'm using shortcut keys, you can see the sorts of keys that I'm pressing. I'll try and say it as I do it, right? Because obviously this is a course for newbies. But if I don't say it, just check that shortcut key indicator down there with all the mouse clicks as well, and that'll let you know sort of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it if I fail to mention it at any point. But yeah, do learn the shortcut keys. You can do things manually with the mouse or with menus, but honestly, when you start learning the shortcut keys, things just become very fluid and very easy to work with. It always becomes like so second nature the more you practice. But yeah, with that said, there are two features I'd like to just mention as well. There's the S3 menu, which is an absolute wonder. So I remember when that actually got brought into Blender, and it was a lifesaver. Much of the features in Blender are hidden in tiny little menus, sometimes even little sort of 2x2 pixel buttons. And try to remember where the heck they all are can be very frustrating, especially if you're picking this up from scratch, because you might wonder where the hell is so-and-so feature. Well, the good news is the F3 menu has got you. So the F3 menu is, well, it's basically the F3 key on your keyboard. You press that, it springs up a menu. and then you can type in the actual command that you're looking for. So providing you know what command you're looking for, which again we'll call out some as we go through, and then you can find it in there generally. The secondary thing I'll mention as well is the radial menu. Incredible feature that shortlists that full FAT3 menu into just the most common commands you could possibly want in that given context that you're in. So that's worth knowing about. And you'll see us using this as we go along. To be honest, I'm more a fan of the S3 menu, but the radial menu is also something that, you know, not to be sneezed at. It's there. It's very, very useful. And you can access that using Shift and S on your keyboard, depending on what setup you've sort of selected for Blender when you started it up, or in the settings. Shift and S is the radial menu, and yeah, F3 is the F3 menu, right? So without any further ado, guys, let's go on to scene navigation. So I'm just going to move back a little so then just plant myself over here so I'm not completely in the way. Okay, so this is the initial scene when you load up Blender. And what you can see here is a collection of things. So you've got a camera, a point light, and you've got actual mesh in here. It's just as a cube, okay? So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to zoom. So taking your mouse, you zoom in using the mouse wheel. And the mouse wheel, if you wheel it up, zooms in. Wheel it out, it zooms out. The next thing we'll show you is how to orbit. So if you click in that mouse wheel, you hold that mouse wheel button down, and then you move the mouse when you do that. And then you can orbit. Okay. Yeah. And what's really funny, look, is when you reach the edge of the screen doing that, so the mouse pointer kind of just loops around, so you don't have to keep letting go and and taking it back up again. You can just keep going. It'll just keep moving or wrapping your mouse pointer around. So that's great. I'm just going to pull this up. Yeah, that's fine. That's about where we started. And the last thing I'm going to do is show you how to pan. So how to pan, you have to hold in the shift button, right? And then you hold down the middle mouse wheel again, or the mouse wheel. And while you do that is you move the mouse with shift and the middle mouse wheel held down. It actually pans, so you just move around like that. So it's quite powerful. You can orbit, pan, turn, orbit, pan, zoom up, zoom out, pan back up, zoom in, pan, like that. So yes, we're practicing with that initially. It's a good trick. So yeah, it's axis, scene axis I was going to talk about. So your global scene axis, you can see you've got a green line there, and that is for Y. The red line coming through here, that is X. And you can't see it, but there's a blue line, and that's the Z. Now, if you've been building in Horizon Worlds, you will know that usually Y is up and down, and Z is sort of a forward and back, if you like. But in Blender, that is not the case. Y is a horizontal axis, as is X. And the reason they do that is you think of like a graph, for example. When you look at a graph straight on, you know, you have the y-axis is actually the up down on the graph, right? And then the axis is the horizontal. So the horizontal is X, the vertical is Y, and Z is depth, right? Z is depth, and that's really important. That's a big distinction. But as we sort of turn, and in fact, if I choose a different axis, you can actually see now. This is an indicator of the axis. As you orbit the scene, look up here, you can see that this axis is also turning to tell you what is what. So if you ever can't remember what's green, what's red, and what's Z, just have a little look over here and it'll tell you. And obviously, coming from Horizon Worlds, the plus Z, the positive Z, is actually the one with a letter on it up here. So I hope I'm not standing in the way of that a sec. Let me just check. No, I'm not. That's good. So the plus Z is there. The plus Y is the one with a Y on it. Or is the negative? If you hover over, it'll actually come up with a minus Y in that green box. So that's important. Yeah. So that is scene navigation. So zoom, orbit, and pan. Okay. Let's move on to adding meshes. Okay, so if I just pull myself out to a certain distance. just a quick word about the from the types of meshes you're going to find in here. So we're not going to cover the full menu, but if I hold down Shift and press K, that springs up this menu. Now my mouse pointer's got to be over this 3D area to do that. So Shift and A. And you can see that straight away taking me to the mesh section. There are lots of other things in here, okay, but I'm not going to go into what they are on this session. But under the mesh, you've got plane, tube, circle, sphere, two different kinds of sphere actually. UV sphere, I think it's made of triangles. Yeah. You've got the cylinder, the cone, and the torus there. There's lots of things you can do here. So if I just pull out another cube, now you're going to ask, where the hell is that cube? Where has it gone? I can't see it. Well, the answer is it's appeared at that 3D cursor. Right, so new meshes will always appear at the 3D cursor. But if I have a little look in the outliner, this is a good time to mention it, you can actually see I've got the two cubes in here, that cube and cube.001. So rather than clicking on the cubes, I can actually select them in the outliner. So I can also set the camera up here, which is probably not the best angle. If I select the camera, you can see the camera lights up. If I select the light is lit up. Great. So to go back to the new cube that I just created, which is cube.001, well, I want to delete him. So if I want to delete that cube that I just put in here, I select him here, and then I can just hit the delete key on the keyboard. There you go. And he's gone, and you can see that he's gone because he's no longer there. Right, so that takes us on to object mode. So, kidneys, we're already in object mode. And how do we know that? Well, at the top left, it says object mode itself. So what are we covering in this? Transforming meshes. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to show you the way that might be friendly to newbies. And over here on the left, if I hover over this menu here, it says transform. Okay, so if I click on that transform tool here, that actually will bring up, if I click on an object. This looks kind of familiar, right? This looks a bit like you might have seen in sort of Horizon Worlds. You've got this sort of almost multi-tool here that has all the axes sort of pointed out to you, so you can grab these and move along a given axis. Look, it's constraining that move along the y-axis because I clicked that. And then, for example, I can click on the red arrow, and I can do just that as well. So that's moving that way. I've also got rotation, so these sort of roundy bits, I can grab all of them and rotate it around the y-axis. That's very easy. And also I can grab the red roundy bit and rotate that around the y-axis. As for scaling as well, if I can do that using the little box-shaped thing in the middle. I can't make that any bigger, sadly, but yeah. That allows me to sort of rescale things. And that's rescaling things globally, okay? I am going to mention at this point, actually, about you can switch to local axis resizing and rescaling. So, if I just sort of get rid of that object, let's start again. Oh, yeah. And if I add in another mesh, that's Shift A, and add the cube. And don't worry about deleting things when you're just starting out. Just see it a bit like a sketch pad. You're just getting the hang of it, right? So, what I can do, yeah, this is going to be useful to see. So, at the moment, I'm on the global axis, which is signified at the top. It says global, okay? So if I rotate this, like so, you can see that the axis is still saying, hey, do you want to move this along the y-axis globally, right? Because it doesn't give a hoot that you've rotated the box. It still allows you to move the box along the global axis. Now, that's useful if you're thinking globally, but the moment you want to say, well, actually, no, I want to move the box like forward on its forward direction, that would make more sense. You can just flick that global to local. And then look what happens to the axis in here. You can now drag it across its local axis. So, but the local axis is the axis that is local to the box. And again, if you're coming from Horizon Worlds, that's going to mean a lot more to you. I think that when you're transforming things like that, that's generally the way you go, isn't it? You can transform an object based upon its local axis. And the same goes for sort of, scaling, I believe. So if I just scale things across the local axis, you can see I've sort of transformed that. Now, you're probably thinking at this stage, like, why does it the scale from the middle, like how do I grab the edge of it? And we'll be covering that in the next section. That is to do with vertex, edge, and face manipulation. And we will absolutely cover that. But so now this is how you rescale objects on their axis from a center point, or certainly from the origin of the geometry. Okay. Oh, rotations as well. Yeah, rotations can now happen. Oops, sorry, clicked the wrong thing. Rotations can now happen on the correct axis. Ooh. There. Great. Cool. Okay. So, using the view axis as constraints. Now, if I just sort of get rid of that, I can say, and sorry, delete. So if I add a new mesh now, just again, I'm gonna get rid of the transform tool a sec, guys. So that should be eyes way. How do I get rid of that? I tick on this, that's it. Okay, so if I click on this, I'm now back to the selection tool. So if I use the axis at the top of here, if I click on Z, for example, I'm looking at it from the top. So I'm going to show you a way of moving things now using a shortcut key. So if I press the G button with the object selected, you can see that when I move my mouse, look, it's following me around. Jeez, go back. Okay, so now if I want to grab an object, I can press G when it's selected, and that allows me to sort of move it around with the mouse. I don't have to click and drag. I've just pressed G and it's following the mouse cursor, and as soon as I'm happy, I can click and it stays put. Similarly, I can rotate. Okay, like so. Now you'll notice that the axis is rotating across is wherever my perspective is looking at it. So as I move around, you can kind of see it. It doesn't look good. We'll cover constraints shortly. But also you've got scales. So if I click on an object and I press S, great. So that uniformly scales an object. Now that you'll notice is not affected by perspective when doing it sort of like that. Unlike the grab and the rotate are affected by the perspective, but the scale is not. So yeah, just to cover that one off, it's G for grab, R for rotate, and S for scale. Perfect. So now we want to constrain that. So if I just delete that object, we'll create a new one. What we do here is we can say, right, grab, but I want to move them just along the x-axis. So I'm going to press X, so G and X. And when you start learning these shortcuts, you get very, very quick in it. Let's see if I want to G and I want to do it across the y-axis. Great. So also if I want to grab and move across the z-axis, I can do just that, up and down. If I wanted to rotate across the y-axis, which is that green line, so that's the sort of, imagine that as like a spindle, sort of. If I press the R button and then I'll say Y, then you can actually see I'm rotating it as if it was on the sort of the spindle of the y-axis. Similarly, if I rotate on the x-axis, it will rotate as long as it's using that. And same goes for Z as well. So, oops, no, roll button. To rotate in Z, and that will just rotate it in place like that. Scaling as well. Scaling on the x-axis, yeah, you can do so like that. For scaling on the y-axis, yeah, also, so it's S and Y. Wonderful. Yeah, that's it. If I flick up to look at the z-axis, this will then let me look at the model top down. So again, I can use the panning controls on this. And if I sort of press G on this, then we know that it's only moving on the X and the Y. It's not going up and down. Similarly, if I go to look at it from the Y, if I grab this, you can see it's only going on the Z and the X axis, that is up and down and left and right. Yeah, so that's useful. That's using the axes to sort of constrain your movement. Now, a lot of 3D designers actually use split panel views. So they might use 4 views. They'll use a perspective and an up and a left and a front. And that's fine. You can use Blender like that. I'm not sure how to do this on this episode, but it is very easy to switch between. Incremental snapping, right, this is an important one. Let's do this. So if I just delete this again, and then bring myself back here and tilt a little bit more. If I do, Shift 8 and Mesh, we're going to add that hue, okay? So, snapping. Snapping is controlled by this little magnifier, magnet. Snapping is controlled by this magnet up here. So if I click on that, you'll notice now if I sort of press G to move it, it's suddenly moving at increments, right? It's not quite the same as grid lines. That is a different option that I will not be covering, but I'll sit and show you where it is. But whether it's sort of moving things or whether it's rotating things, okay, I'm sorry. There is an angular snap that if I go in here, you can see that the snapping affects movement, rotation, and scale, but we can sort of select these and turn them on. That's a useful trick to know. So now if I go back to rotate, it is definitely rotating at a sort of a slight increment. It's not as free as it was. If I just show you what it is without, that's a lot smoother. But if I sort of take them up to here, definitely see that it's a lot more constrained. Similar with scaling as well. So yeah, that's with snapping. And that's without. Cool. Okay, so that is incremental snapping. Okay, so we sort of peeked at it a second ago. And if we turn that back on and we have a look, so the ones that I'm going to show you today are going to be increment, as vertex, edge, and face. So let's have a little primer on what we mean by that as we move into the next phase. So if I just delete that. If I go into create a new mesh again, and I'm going to just come down here. So we're going to move into sort of edit mode and explain it as we go. So to move into edit mode and out of object mode, we simply press the tab key on the keyboard. And that changes us from object mode to edit mode. You can see in the top left. Up here, we've got some very important options. That is vertex select, that is edge select, and that is face select. And vertex, or vertices is the polarization. A vertex is a single point, and that point will be connected sometimes by an edge, which moves us on to edges. Okay, so that's an edge. It's basically a line between two vertices. And then a face is like a surface, and it's a surface that is made up by multiple edges. Now, to have that, you can have triangles, or you can have sort of what they refer to as quads, which is a sort of square or rectangle shaped surface. Behind the scenes, they can often be made up of triangles, but you never see those triangles. So what we'll do is we'll go back to vertex select, and then we're going to apply some of the principles that you learn in object mode. The edit mode allows you to directly affect that geometry internally. So we're actually editing that mesh. Now, this is something that you won't have done before in Horizon Worlds because it just wasn't possible. So if we press G on this, you can see without vertex selected, and I'm actually going to turn off snapping just so we can see it. I'm sorry. So if I press G again, oh, no, but that's not what I wanted to do. Let me select a single vertex. You can see this is lit up white and all the other ones are dark. So if I press G again, you see I'm actually moving that vertex now, look. And if I sort of drop that there in an orbit, I'll show you a quick trick actually about orbiting. That if you ever want to sort of, you can notice the orbit is not really following the center that I like right now. It's sort of, it thinks its center is over here. So if I press A to select all, that's A to select all. And if I press M3, I should have the option to, if I type in frame, so it's the F3 menu, and then I hit frame, or I type frame. I've now got frame all or selected. So I'm going to go to selected. And that allows me now to see and orbit around just the object that I care about. That's very, very important. Frame all will frame around your entire scene and everything in it. So frame selected is the one that I use mostly. But you can actually see that vertex load that I moved now, it's actually, it's actually moved out. And do you remember what I was saying about things being split like triangles? You can kind of see that the act of me moving this, you have to look really closely, but you can kind of see, you see the triangle that is drawn between this and that to form two triangles here. So you can see that, well, it's not a straight up square. But I'm going to undo that now. So if I just take that back, so that's just Control Z a few times there. I'm now going to use the edge select mode. So to do that, I'm going to go to the top left and click this edge. And now if I click on an edge, I can press G again. Like I'm moving a whole edge. Great, so I can create some really twisty things. If I undo that now, we're just going to go on to face selection. So if I now select an entire face, I can press G, I can move that face and create some, interesting sort of shapes. You can multi-select items. So back on vertices, I can click on something. If I hold down Shift, I can click on another. I can then click on another, and I can click on another. So I've selected 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if I just orbit the camera and try and grab those, you can see I'm moving all of them at once, which is really cool. And that works with edges as well. So for example, if I want to select 2 edges and grab them, so I want to select sort of 3 faces. So if I select face view 1, 2, 3, and then if I just grab those, you can see that's actually grabbed 2 faces. So you do all sorts of interesting things with geometry there. Additionally, you're not just restricted to grabbing. So for example, I could grab 1 vertex, 2 vertex, and 3 vertex. Now if I press S to scale, I can scale them from, I believe, whatever center points they're at, or from the 3 cursor. I'm not entirely sure, but either way, you can definitely scale them up, or down, as the case may be. If I sort of press S and move the pointer in, you can see it kind of goes in on itself. But yeah, you can again create some really interesting shapes with that. If I just undo that, what's next, guys? Yeah, rotations are also a thing, so I can grab a face and even rotate it. So, or I can constrain that rotation on the y-axis so they can get a little spin just like that. So, kind of nice, isn't it? So next we're going to move on to snapping. Okay, so in terms of snapping, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use that Shift A again, okay, to create another mesh. And he's going to be a cube again. And I'm going to use my grab tool and grab him along the x-axis. Okay, I'm going to turn on this magnet. Okay, and then I can say, right, I want to snap him to the edge. So by selecting an item and pressing the G key, if I pick this up, look what happens. You actually see he's trying to snap to that edge. It's marvelous. So if I just G that, pull it down here, you can actually, it takes a bit of fiddling, but you get there in the end. But you can actually see, like, just by doing that, I've got the edges aligned, sure. If I change to vertex snapping now, you can see I can actually G. I can snap to an actual vertex. Look at that. So if I've got 2 objects that are exact same dimensions, I can absolutely do that. Boop. Yeah, so I can pick that up. Put it out of here and just snaps to the nearest. So yeah, that's vertex and edge snapping. Okay, so snapping equally also in edit mode can be done. So what I can do, for example, is if I create an object inside another object. So if I just create cube there using the old Shift A, but it's a slightly different Shift A because we're inside edit mode. So I'm just going to grab a constraint on the y-axis. Okay, and drop him there. Now I want to pick up a line, an edge. So I switch to edge select mode. And again, this is an edit mode, not object mode. So this is slightly different from the previous time we looked at this. And if I grab that, pull him across to here. I need to turn it on. I'm sorry. There we go. So if I go up here and I say, yeah, snap to edge. Then if I grab that and pull them across here, you can actually see here slapping to the edge, like so. Oops. Here. There we go. Perfect. Classic. And I can come out of there and I have an interesting shape there. Okay. So now we're going to look at a bunch of operations. Okay, so they are going to be extrusions, inset faces, bevels, and loop, cut, and slide. Now, the first three should be fairly basic. The last one takes a bit of a wiggling, but you will get there. So if I press tab, if I'm in object mode, to enter edit mode, okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select faces, okay. So if I click on a face, now I'm going to extrude that. And you see what happens. If I extrude, I'm basically pulling that face up and out. So I'm making a whole bunch of new faces on that object. And likewise, I can click another face. I can press E for extrude there, and I can pull that out. I can take another face. You press E to extrude, and I'm pulling that out too. Okay, that's great. So that's extrusions, guys. Very, very basic. You just press E, pull it out, and then tick. But then we can move on to inset faces. Now, inset faces, I'll press F3 because I can never remember the shortcut key. And if I type in inset, and over inset faces, so it's a Control F, by the way, but that's not as easy to remember as E, right? So using the F3 menu, I type in inset faces, or at least inset, and it comes up with inset faces. So if I now press enter on that, you see when I move the mouse cursor, what happens? Well, and I gotta be a little bit, there we go. So you can see I'm actually pulling an inset in, which is lovely. What is that useful? Well, now we can extrude from an inset. So if I press the E key, look at this. That's great, isn't it? Or I can sort of undo that a sec. If I just do inset faces one more time, yeah, we're gonna pull that inwards. And what I do is I'm gonna extrude inwards. Check this out. Why? Oh my god! Up here. So because I've got snapping on, that was really confusing it. So I'm going to hold down the control key, and control key sort of temporarily disables snapping for, whatever you're in the middle of. So I can inset that in low. That's marvelous. So just create a sort of a head interior. Wonderful. Okay. So that is extrusion and inset with extrusion. So next thing I'm going to show you, I'm probably going to start again on this one. So if I just remove that, if I create a cube, now we'll do some beveling. Okay, beveling is super useful because I know in Horizons a lot of you used to do beveling very manually by combining ramps with cubes, which don't get me wrong, it's the only way we could have done it, but it is wholly inefficient. So what we do, I can go into edit mode on this. I need to select edges, okay, and I press A to select all edges. Or you could just do it on a few. We'll come back and try that shortly. But if I press A, that selects all edges on the current object that I'm editing. And this I press F3 and I do bevel. I got an option here called bevel edges, which is actually Control and E if you need to remember that, but use the menu otherwise. So by hitting that and moving the mouse pointer, you should be able to see. Oh, look at that. So there's a little sweet spot here you just got to find. And you can now see it's actually beveling it quite nice, right? And if I mouse wheel while I'm doing this, so I haven't clicked anything yet, but if I mouse wheel, look at that. I can mouse wheel up to add extra complexity. Now, one word of caution, don't go too crazy with this, right? You want to keep your objects as simple as possible. So something like that would create quite a nice soft cube. And what I'll show you is a technique to make it look more high definition whilst reducing the amount of triangles you've got on your object. And that's so important. That's something I think a lot of newbies don't look at. They add the most possible triangles they can to make it look smooth. But actually, now he's beveled it like that really simply. If I just come out of here, you see they call this flat shading. But if I press F3, okay, and I say smooth, so that's shade smooth. I gotta be careful. There's a lot of options in here. You don't want any of those. You want shade smooth. And look, you've got yourselves a sort of a game engine friendly soft cube, which is really important because then you can have a lot of them in a scene. If you go too crazy with adding too many sort of faces to an object, you're going to find you're not going to be able to get many in until people's frame rates start screwing up. So yeah, aim for this. Aim for low complexity if you can. It's very important, guys. So, okay. That is beveling. And then the last thing I'm going to show you in this section is the loop, cut, and slide. Now, this is particularly powerful. So we're going to go with cube again. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edit mode. So then I'm going to press F3. Okay, and then I'm going to say loop, cut, and slide. Okay, so see this, I haven't clicked anything here, but see this little yellow line that's appearing? That's known as a loop cut, okay? And that's if it can detect something in your geometry that it's able to equally cut through and join it up, it absolutely will. So I just choose which dimension I want. Well, I want a sort of a horizontal cut. So if I just hover around this edge here, and now I can just click that. Now, the reason it's called a loop cut and slide is after one click, I can now slide that up and down. It's very, very powerful. As you've got snapping on below, you may need to hold down control at this point just to give yourself a bit of flexibility. But I can, for example, click again, and that drops the loop cut in there. And I can add another one, so loop, cut, and slide. And I'm going to just hover over here and click once to get the right dimension, and then size it up. And now I want to put that there. So now I've got these loop cuts. Well, what can I do with that? Well, I've added extra geometry here to my objects. If I select the edge, well, I believe I think it's Control-Shift-A selects the entire loop cut once it's positioned. Yeah, so that's a shortcut, right? Instead of going around selecting them all using Shift and click, right, which you could do. Instead, just try. I think it's Shift, Alt, and click. You messed it a couple of times there, and it actually selects an entire loop cut. That's very useful if you've got a more complex shape and you've done a loop cut on it. But what I can do now is I can select maybe a face. That's a face select mode. I can click on that, and I can now extrude outwards. So if I just say, yeah, oops, here, like some. So it now creates this sort of a shelf coming into that. Well, on the other side, maybe I can do like an inset faces, just to pull that inwards. Whoops. There. Okay. And then I can sort of extrude that inwards, like so. And I've just got myself like quite a nice shape there. So again, very, very powerful techniques if used in combination with each other. You can do an awful lot of sort of geometry wrangling there. Yeah, very cool. One thing I will show you actually with the loop cut before we move on is you could do a multi-loop cut. So if I just delete that object, I'm going to add another mesh. He's going to be a cube. And if I edit that object, press F3, loop, cut, and slide. Now, while I'm in this sort of choose your dimension thing, if I press the mouse wheel upwards, it actually adds more loop cuts. So you can sort of flip around and create like if you wanted to do, I don't know, a skyscraper or something, right? Probably not the most efficient way of doing it, but look, you can do an awful lot of that with that. So if I click that, I've now got multiple loop cuts in there, and then I can sort of go in here and multi-select, and I can grab and move it along the Z-axis, so I can do all sorts of fun things there, you know. Very, very useful sort of trick there, the loop cut and slide, and a good one to know about. So the last thing we're going to move on to now, guys, is modifiers. So modifiers are the layers that you add onto objects, okay? So what do I mean by that? Well, here he is, the humble hue, okay? And what we're going to do is down the bottom right here is a little green, and in fact I may need to move out of the way for you to see this bit. Let me just shift my buttons, and so sorry. Right, okay, so what we have down here is we have like a little spanner going on now, and if I sort of click on that, you can see that there's an add modifier button. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to click on that, and then it's going to come up with a whole load of stuff. Now, an array tool is what's known as a generator. So if I go into here and I hit generate array, you can now see that's actually doubled my object because I have a count of 2. So modifiers don't change your core geometry, but they add like an extra quality on top. Like for example, if I go into edit mode on this, you can now see the original cube, right? And it's been joined by this sort of the secondary cube, which is coming from the array modifier. So if I hit on the face modifier and I sort of change that face, if I grab that and move it, you can see what happens now. The other object is copycasting it. Right? So you can make sort of like, if I take this down and I do sort of grab on a z-axis on one face, I can make it sort of almost a stair, right? And if I pull this in, so G, am I going to do this on the x-axis, the red line? So if I just pull this in, oh, hello. Taking these control just to override the snapping. Tell you what, I'm going to disable that for now, make my life easier. So you can definitely see that as I've done that, it's actually changed the copy. And if I add the amount of copies, it was happening. It's creating more. So why is this useful? Well, again, you know, you guys are familiar, or should be familiar with the array tool in Horizons. And what we've got here on the right is we've got the count. So how many copies are we having? Well, I want maybe 7. 7's a good number. Why not? And the factor is done as how far are we moving it in terms of like I don't want to see percentage, but as an amount of the actual size of the object, which is why if I resize the object, you'll see that the whole thing sort of grows and changes the length of the array. But if I wanted to say make a pair of stairs, staircase, I could just up. I gotta find which axis that object is on. So Z's, don't forget, is by default, it's up and down. Okay, so if I was to press the plus button on that, okay, you can now see that it's going at a factor of 1 upwards and a factor of 1 on the x-axis, okay? So again, you can do some sort of exciting variations of this. If I select the whole thing, oops, I should be able to. If I just grab, so if I grab it like that, that's fine. If I rotate it like that, that's fine. Remember, we can constrain rotations by doing R and Z. We can tilt it on the Z-axis. That's fine. If I just close that a sec, go back into edit mode now. If I rotate like this on the Z-axis, you can actually see that rotating in edit mode has quite a different effect. It's pretty cool, no? That rotating in object mode doesn't, and that's because when you're rotating in edit mode, the object's local axis is on the sort of the outside, if you like. So when you rotate it internally in edit mode, it doesn't know. It thinks the location is still on the outside. There, that's a very useful trick to know. You can do a lot of incredible stuff with that. So again, you can sort of add all you want here. Now, probably the last thing I'm going to cover today actually is going to be using the array tool with an object offset, because you know this is something that's very difficult to do in Horizon Worlds. But you can see down here you've got an object offset, and here, let me just move my way over to the other side of the screen just so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. No, go this way. Right, perfect. So in here, we're going to create a new thing. So Shift and A. Now this is actually going to be an empty. Now you can use a mesh, but to be honest, an empty is far more lightweight. So if I just click on plain axis here, you can see that this axis has sort of dropped just here where my 3D cursor is, which is a little sort of red and white sort of circle. And that is just simply, it's an invisible sort of set of axes, but it can be used to sort of position it however you want, or rotate or whatever. But we'll come back to that. But what I'm going to do is in the object rotation, I'm probably going to just go back to my stairs by clicking on them, and then make sure I'm in modifiers here and I can see my array modifier. And if I take this down to, well, 0, I guess. Let's try it. Okay, and there we see object offset. So I'm going to click this empty. Oh, shoes. I click this empty, and I'm going to drag him down here. Alternately, I can also use the little picker here. So I can click this picker, and I can just click on empty there. So that's assigned him. So just make sure I'm still in the cube right now. And now the object offset I'm going to turn on. Ready? Okay. So does this make a difference? Let's try it. Object is now taking over. So if I grab this empty and I pull him around, see what happens. Like the empty is the object offset here, so its relation to that first object is what's governing what's happening to the other objects. And again, you can do all sorts of fun things with this. But also don't forget we've got rotation. Check this out. Whoa, she can do all sorts of crazy crap. Can jump back to the actual cube and then maybe at the count. So yeah, you could do a lot of sort of really unique sort of spiral effects with that, which is kind of cute. Nice. Okay. I think, to be honest, that's all I'm going to cover today. I think that's a lot. Thank you for sticking with it. If you made it to the end, I hope that in some way all that was useful. Basically, we're not covering materials, textures, coloring, etc. on this course, but if you want me to do that one, just let me know. Drop something in the comments, drop a like, drop me a subscribe. All these things give me that vital feedback that know that you guys actually want me to do more of this, because they do take time to put together. But yeah, just lets me know that you guys are actually getting something from it. So anyway, happy blendering. See you later.